In this video, I'm going to show you how to solve quadratics by completing the square. It's a good idea to watch the video on how to complete the square and to understand the difference of two squares and special expansions before watching this video. So let's have a look at a quadratic expression. Let's go with, I'll just do a couple of examples. Let's do x squared minus 4x plus 2 equals 0. And we're going to solve this by completing the square. So when I complete the square, I'm going to subtract the 2 from both sides so that on the left I can complete a perfect square here. So remember, to do that I need to add the half the coefficient of x squared. So I'll be adding 4 to both sides. So that will leave me x squared minus 4x plus 4 on the left, and obviously I need to do the same to the right. So factorizing the left hand side now, because that's a perfect square, gives me x, well my pen's gone a bit funny, gives me x minus 2 squared, and on the right I'm left with minus 2 plus 4, which is 2. Now, if I'm going to complete the square, what we have done in the past is we've moved this 2 over. However, because I'm going to solve, what I want to do when you solve is you want to isolate x on its own. So I'm literally going to move through this as though I'm solving an equation. Now, to do this, I'm going to square root both sides, so that I'm left with just x minus 2 on the left, and on the right I'm left with the square root of 2. But don't forget, when you square root something, you get a positive and a negative answer. So on the left I'm left with x minus 2, and on the right I've got plus or minus the square root of 2. Okay, so it's positive and the negative version. So that's going to give me 2 answers. And when you solve a quadratic, you should get 2 answers. Okay. And then I'm literally, to get x on its own, I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So I've got x equals plus or minus root 2 plus 2. So let's write both those solutions down. I've got either x equals positive root 2 plus 2, or x equals negative root 2 plus 2. Now this is my preferred method of solving when you complete the square. However, I will just highlight, when you get to this point here, you do have the option of solving it in this way. However, if you're the sort of person who's going to forget that when you square root something, you have a positive and a negative answer here, then you might want to complete by subtracting the 2 so that you literally write it as though it's the difference of 2 squares. So let me just show you an alternative solution from that highlighted line. So like I said, you'd subtract the 2 so that it's written like fully completed square form. Now, what you can then do is you can say, well, this number, this second term here is a 2. Yes, it's a negative 2, but let's just focus on the 2. I can square root that and square it, and it still gives me 2. So you can write that as x minus 2 all squared minus root 2 all squared. Now, what I've created here is the difference of 2 squares, where this first bit here is my a, and this second bit is my b. And we know that the difference of 2 squared expansion is a squared minus b squared. When it's expanded, is a minus b multiplied by a plus b. So using the fact that this is my a and this is my b, I get x minus 2 minus root 2 and x minus 2 plus root 2. And that's another way of making sure. So of course I'm going to use the null factor law now because it equals 0. So of course it equals 0. I'm going to use the null factor law to solve that. When I do that, I get x minus 2 minus root 2 equals 0, or I get x minus 2 plus root 2 equals 0. And once I solve that and move everything over so that x is isolated, I'm left with x equals, on this one, plus root 2 plus 2. Or, and again on this one I move it over, minus root 2 plus 2. So let's just compare the alternative method. So when I did it my way, I got that answer. And of course, if you look at the difference of 2 squares, you get exactly the same answer. You need to decide which one you prefer. If you're the sort of person who's going to forget that when you square root, you have 2 answers, then this may be the way to go forward. Let me do another one. X squared plus 6x minus 11 equals 0. So I'm going to complete the square. So I will move the 11 over to the right hand side, and then I'm going to create a perfect square here on the left, which means I need to add 3 squared to both sides. So I'll be adding 9 to both sides. So that leaves me with 20 on that side, because 11 plus the 9 is 20. Now, this on the left fully factorised gives me x plus 3 squared, and on the right I've just got the 20. Now, I'm going to solve it my way by square rooting both sides, so I'm left with x plus 3 on the left. Pen's gone funny. Apologies, can't do much when the pen plays up. So x plus 3 equals the square root of 20. And don't forget that's a plus and a minus, so you get two answers. And then to solve, to get x alone, I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. I've got plus or minus root 20 minus 3. And so therefore, my two solutions are x equals positive root 20 minus 3, or x equals negative root 20 minus 3.